Hey everyone, welcome to the Fireside Chat number 40 on Crushing Classical, redefining a thriving classical music career. I'm Tracy Friedlander, and today Eileen and I are talking about your actions matching your goals. I've recently been discovering some interesting things about the way I navigated my playing career. In hindsight, I'm realizing how I could have had better strategies, ones that certainly would have gotten me to my goals much sooner. There are certain themes in your life as a classical musician, themes and rules that cause you to go off your path gradually, and over time, you end up on a different course than you started. As you listen, think of how you may be doing this now in your path towards your goals. Now is a great time to have a look at this for yourself while you listen, so you can correct your direction and stay on the track to what you actually want. Before we start, a couple of quick things. Please join the conversation at facebook.com/crushingclassical, as well as Crushing Classical on Instagram. If you love what you see, it would mean so much to us if you would comment on posts and share them with your classical musician friends and colleagues. Also, if you love these podcasts, please take a moment to review Crushing Classical on iTunes. Having more reviews helps more musicians to find our podcasts, and we really appreciate it. Let's get started. Hey, Eileen, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Great. So today we're going to talk about some interesting kind of observations. Actually, I'm going to definitely look into my own life for this, but also talk about some observations about like actions matching your goals, because there's some interesting stuff about it we were talking about earlier. So I think it's worth a discussion. So I wanted to tell you about a situation last week on Crushing Classical page, we got so close to 1,000. It was like, well, we just broke it. We just broke 1,000, and it was like we're at 994, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I think it was 994 yet. By the way, we're talking about likes here. Likes on the page. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Likes on the page, on Crushing Classical page.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was getting ready to do my Christmas gig that I had, and I was like, I mean, come on, I can find 6 more people to like this page. They're musicians and people that are my friends, and some of them even know about Crushing Classical who might not have already liked the page. So I went to work, and we're backstage, and I was talking to some people, and one guy I had just met, actually, which is funny because in this town, it's not that big, but he really mostly does Broadway stuff, and so we hadn't met before, but he knows lots of people that I know, and so we're chit-chatting, and I told him about the podcast and the page, and he pulls out his phone, and he's got the app on there, and he likes it right away, and I'm like, all right, now I have 5 more left. And so I started asking some more people, and I started talking to a friend of mine who's I hadn't seen in a while, and I'm like, what's going on with you? And he's like, oh, I just made a CD. And I'm like, oh, awesome. And then I said, are you promoting it? Are you marketing it? He goes, I'm not really. Like, I don't have time, and this and that and the other. I'm like, well, how many CDs? And the other guy's he's piping in, he's like, how many CDs do you have left? Or how many did you start with? And he's like, I started with 800. And the other guy goes, how many do you have now? 740, like he's just giving him some shit. It's funny. He's like, no, I have about 700. And I'm like, all right, well, are you on Facebook? I'll like your page. Like, tell me what your page is and I'll like it. And he's like, yeah, what's my page? Like, he tells me the name. And, so I go to it, and it's, there's like 24 likes on the page. I'm like, dude, you're trying to sell CDs right now, and you only have 24 likes on your page, And he's like, well, now I have 25. I'm like, yeah, you do. You have 25 now because I just liked it.
I mean, cue eye roll right here. I mean,
Exactly.
I just can't, and by the way, I know this is off topic, but let me just ask a question. Why are people still making CDs?
I'm not sure about that.
In other words, is that the only way? Not that I want to go off on a tangent here, but is that the only way to make a recording these days? You have to make a recording, and you have to produce CDs with artwork and blah blah blah, and you have to sell them physical. I mean, do you really have to do that? Is that necessary?
You know what? Look, I think, okay, I know that this is my opinion. Probably isn't going to match the classical music world per se, but I feel like that's stuck in the early 2000s
Well, that's
that
why I'm
doing
bringing
that.
this up because I don't even own CDs anymore, like at all. None. I have zero. None.
No, I don't even have a
Yeah.
CD player. I have one in
I
my
don't even have
car.
I don't even have DVDs anymore.
I know.
Because you can watch movies, you can go to any streaming service if you want to get movies, which I never do, but that's not the point. If you want to watch any movies, you can go to pretty much any streaming service and get what you need. So are people still buying that shit? That's my question. Like, are people still buying CDs? Really? Are people still doing that?
I know because I am not buying CDs. And so, and
Mm-mm.
I know for a fact that in other niches, like let's take hip hop, for example, what they do is they use their music and their mixtapes to get a following for their live shows and different things like
Well, that's
that.
what I would, yeah,
And
so that's what I would think. And I understand they want people to buy their music. That makes sense. You want
Mhm,
people to buy an album, but wouldn't you buy an album, say, on iTunes or, in other words, wouldn't you make it
mhm.
available? Am I just wrong about, do I not understand how this works? I clearly don't understand how this works.
Well, unless you're selling to people who are still having, still listening in that way. I don't know. Like if your target audience is like 50 and above, maybe. I don't know. But
Yeah,
I can tell you that,
like I listen to music on iTunes. I have iTunes. I have an iTunes music library,
mhm,
and you can get Apple Music or whatever, so you can get access to the entire music library for a monthly fee. I don't actually do Apple Music right now, but I did. I did for several months last
mhm.
year actually because it was cool. I was like, oh, I can listen to this, and I can listen to this, and I can listen to it was cool. But I mean, is it, how you can put a podcast? This is my question is, if you want to create a podcast, you can get it on iTunes, which is what you did, right? Crushing Classical. So,
Yeah.
can you do that with an album? I think is my question. Like, isn't that what you would do with an album or not? I guess I'm confused. Like, why can you put a podcast on iTunes, but you can't put an album on iTunes?
I don't know.
Okay.
You can put an album on. No, I think you can do that. Well, I've even seen podcasts that are all music.
Well, because I'm going to look this up on Saturday because it's bothering me. Let's be clear. That's what I'm going to do. And so, because that Saturday is my day to screw around on the computer and learn things. That's what I
Uh-huh.
like to do. I like to go and look up obscure shit that doesn't matter. And I have a list of that. And so it doesn't matter, but I'm interested, right? So this is one of those things I'm going to add to the list because I really actually want to know because I just don't understand. Look, I understand people wanting to make albums and for people to listen to your music. And I think that's great. I just don't understand why you would sell CDs. And so this guy is saddled with 800 CDs that he has to sell. And they're probably, in a bookcase in his house, you know.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
so we'll get back to the topic now. I'm trying to like turn the car around so we can talk about what you started. But I'm just saying, like, it's just really, it kind of baffles me, this whole CD thing, because I mean, even I have a laptop right now that I'm on that we're recording on right now that doesn't even have a CD. Does yours? Do you have a CD
No.
slot? Mine doesn't even have one anymore. They don't even
No.
make those. You have to buy it separate now,
Yeah.
you
It's not
know?
even on after at a certain point they stopped putting it in the computers.
Yeah, like you don't even have a DVD. I used to have my last computer, my last laptop, it was a MacBook Pro, had a DVD, CD slot. And of course, that stopped working after so many years. I mean, I used that computer for about 8 years. And
Hmm.
so, of course, after a while, these things die. They just do. And so, it eventually malfunctioned, but it worked for many, many years. But I mean, now if you want to get an external, it's going to cost you like several $100s to get one of those,
Totally.
you know? It's really, so anyway, I just bring that up because how many people are going to do that now? That's why iTunes, that's why Kindle, that's why, it's, I just think it's interesting. And so this guy is saddled with, of course, trying to sell the 750, you know,
Right.
albums that he has left, right? CDs. And
Right.
so,
Right.
yeah, it's interesting. But so now we'll get back to the topic, but if anybody knows, I'd be really interested. I'm obviously going to look this up this weekend, but if anybody knows about this, like, tell me what I don't understand about this. If you're listening to this, there's clearly a gap in my knowledge about why people create CDs in the classical world, why that's so normal. I'm just curious because it just doesn't seem like people listen to CDs anymore, but I could be wrong about that.
Yeah.
you
Yeah, I
know?
don't know. I don't know.
So,
And what I know from other niches is that like I mean other genres actually is that they're doing music promotion in a totally different way. And
yep.
I wonder what that would look like in classical music, and I wonder if it would be more successful now, especially for new audiences. If you want to get new audiences, like say the people who aren't listening to CDs and aren't buying CDs, that could be a consideration, you know?
Mhm. Yeah, totally.
So, and I know
Totally.
SoundCloud is where people put stuff up
Oh
for
yeah, that's
free.
another one. Yeah, SoundCloud, and
Hmm.
I know there's other ones. I'm not real big on the music thing. Music is not really. I'm such a reader now. I'm such a information consumer as far as like learning goes. That's where a lot of people spend a lot of their time listening to music. I spend all my time like learning, and so
Yeah.
yeah, I'm clear that I don't understand something about this, and so I'm absolutely willing to call myself an idiot here. Like I'm a music recording idiot. I don't know. And so, yeah, I just think it's interesting. And so this guy, so he created a CD. And by the way, was it a solo CD, or what kind of a CD is it?
It's early music ensemble.
Okay. That seems to be a thing.
Yeah, no. When he said that, I was like, I guess there's a resurgence of early music because I know several
Apparently.
people. Yeah, there's some people
Yeah, because
here
actually
who,
we have some crushing classical people who are into early music, which I didn't even know people did that anymore.
yeah, it seems like it's really happening more frequently. I know some horn players here who are loving the whole natural horn thing, and um, I know that some people think it's really fun. And it's hard because I've tried playing the natural horn, and it's a skill you have to develop. It's not the same as playing your horn because you don't have valves and there's all kind of other techniques to do. But
Right.
yeah,
Interesting.
yeah,
So,
that's a
okay,
good
so it's an
question.
early music. Okay, so it's an early, so he's going to have to, you talked about behavior not matching your goals. So
Right.
he's going to
So I
actually
was
have
like,
to reach out to a different community because there is a community that's very into this,
yeah, yeah.
right?
Yeah, and so the behavior not matching the goal is like clearly this is if you just want to look at this one goal, he needs to sell these CDs. And
Mhm.
one way of doing that is online. That's really the only way because it's not going to get into, there's no music stores, you know, there's no music stores. Either he has to
What's,
call people and sell
you
it
know, what's,
directly or
what's really funny is, I mean, and I'm going to ask an idiot question. Is it really true that there are no music stores anymore? Does that not exist?
I think that you can go to like used CD store places, but
Okay.
I mean, last time you were at the mall? Okay, that's a silly question because I know you don't go to the mall, but like,
I didn't go to
there's
the
no
mall.
coconuts
But
anymore. I know Tower Records closed down,
yeah, Tower
you
Records
know,
closed a long time ago. Yep. Yep.
and
Okay.
and I'm
I was
pretty
just
sure
curious.
coconuts and these type of places. I mean, coconuts. How old am I? But like, just these whatever other names. I mean, I think you can still buy CDs at Best Buy, but I mean, I haven't been to Best Buy in forever. I don't know. I order things online. I don't go to stores as
Right.
much because I don't want to deal
Yep.
with people and crowds. So
Yep.
the last time I like thumbed through CDs, I think there's CDs at the bookstore, our local bookstore. So yeah, I guess there are some CD places you can buy CDs, but if you've produced a CD yourself, is it necessarily going to get into Borders bookstore? Like
Right.
probably not.
Right.
You published your CD on your own. So,
Right.
but yeah,
Okay.
no, it's a good
Interesting. Yeah.
question.
So
And so
it's up to him then to get it done.
it's up to him. Yeah.
Yep. It's up to
Yeah.
him.
And then he said I was like, I inquired, like, what's going on here? And he's like, oh, I just don't like Facebook. I just go on there like once a month. Cause he got out his phone. Cause I'm like, okay, we like Christian classical. I'm like 4 away from getting to 1,000. And he's like, he pulls out his phone and he starts to log in on Safari. I'm like, don't you have the app?
Right. The
And he's
fact that he
like,
doesn't have the
no.
app says it all, right?
Yeah, and he's like, no, I just never go on Facebook. And someone else I asked if they would like the page, and they said I'm not on Facebook. So like,
Hmm.
there's a lot of musicians who just aren't on Facebook at all. So
Yeah.
another
I mean,
thing, like
I hate to be negative Nelly here for a minute, but if you are, this is the truth. If you are falling behind on technology, and where the world is going, you're going to be, you're going to hurt at some point.
yep,
Uh, you're gonna like at some point this is going to be an actual problem. I remember my aunt, who's no longer with us, but she stopped. She used to know how to use a computer. Like when she had a job, she worked in a interior decorating store, but she had to use a computer, right? And so she
Mm-hmm.
knew how to log in. She knew where the power button was. I know these are basic things, but when somebody is older, and that's what she was, she was in her 60s at that point, and so logging into a computer and learning how to use it properly, not necessarily because she didn't grow up with computers. That's not what they did, right?
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that she got to a point where when she retired, she stopped using a computer. So then all of a sudden she didn't know where the power button was. And the whole idea of any social media or anything, that was completely foreign to her. That's what happens when you fall behind. That's what happens when you don't stay. And it's not that you have to know everything about it, but if all the conversations are happening there and all of the things are happening there and you decide not to be there, in 20 years, you're going to show up and you're going to be like, what the hell happened?
Yeah.
And you're going to have to catch up on all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be a problem. And what
Yeah.
if you want to promote yourself? Like, what if there's something you create and you want to promote yourself, but you have no idea how to use the tools?
Yeah. It's not good.
That's a problem. That's actually a problem, you know? So it's interesting that
Mm-hmm.
he doesn't. Well, okay, so what did he say? How is he going to promote, or how was he promoting this or not?
He didn't have an answer. He didn't.
Okay.
But I invited him
No.
into the the classical cats group. I said, look, if Facebook is a problem for you, he said, oh, I just don't like the stuff I see on the homepage and, on his
Hmm.
feed. And I said, hey, check out these articles. I mean, essentially these pin posts that I have in the group and, read up on how to control your Facebook feed so you can actually use it for yourself. Like use it to get educated, use it to promote your stuff and use it to grow your audience. That's what you can use it for. You don't have to like decide that you don't like it because of the stuff you're being shown. You're being shown stuff because Facebook doesn't know what you like because you're not on it.
Hmm.
So,
Yep. Totally. Interesting.
yeah,
Yeah. So
it's
that's a
just
good
funny.
example of somebody. It's a good example of somebody that has a certain intention and isn't behaving according to that intention, or maybe he just gave up.
Exactly. But I have other examples off of social media too, because social media is a great example, but I wanted to bring it into real life as well, because when we were chatting about this, it totally rang true for me. Like, in situations where you have a goal and you know something that you want, but you're not, the actions aren't matching that. So like one way that has happened in my life is that, I knew that I wanted a job in an orchestra.
Hmm.
Like that was what I really, really wanted. But as I was offered things, I thought, oh, well, I have to take this. I have to take this opportunity to play assistant in this orchestra or that orchestra, even though I knew I didn't want to play assistant either. I didn't like it. Um, but I felt like I needed to get my foot in the door. I started justifying things. Well, I have to do this because I have to get experience, or I have to do that because I need to make money, and it took my eye off the goal for sure. And before I knew it, I looked around and I had created a career that I was doing the thing that I didn't actually want to be doing.
Hmm. So you created
So,
a career playing assistant, basically, which is what you didn't want.
yep,
Hmm.
exactly.
Yep. And of course, all during that time too, you actually would have wanted a low horn position, right?
Yeah, that's the other thing.
Hmm.
I justified, oh, I need to, there's a lot of justification. I justified, oh, I better take all the auditions because then I'll have more opportunities, more chances to win a job, any job. Even though
Hmm.
really what I want, I didn't think past the audition,
Hmm.
to the actual job that I was going to get. I didn't
Hmm.
think, well, what happens if I win a principal horn job and, I don't feel that solid and secure all the time on high range. Like that didn't
Hmm.
even, that part of the whole plan was not included in my plan. So that's
That's hilarious to me. Like,
no,
because I
I know
can't
it's
imagine.
embarrassing. It's actually
It's
embarrassing to
embarrassing.
say, and it's funny because I didn't realize it at the time. I realize it now
Yeah.
because of the work we're doing here, to be honest,
Hmm.
and our challenges and stuff.
Hmm.
Like I've been doing all the challenges and the courses that we're putting out, and I'm And it's funny how I'm unraveling things and seeing things and
Hmm.
seeing where I could have made different choices to stay on target. That was the
Hmm.
issue. It's really the
Yep.
issue. It's so easy
Yep.
to get off target because of what you think you should be doing, or it's always what you should be doing. And you eventually get confused, I think. The more you make wrong choices that aren't
Yeah.
maybe I shouldn't say wrong choices, but choices that aren't congruent with what your actual goal is. The more you do that, the more confused you get. And then the
Hmm.
more nervous and scared you get about the thing you actually want because you start to convince yourself that it's not possible.
Hmm.
And then you just start bringing your game down to a lower and lower level. Like I don't think I can even do that thing that I originally wanted to do anymore. Cause
That's where most people land right there is
mhm.
they spend so much time, going away from the thing they wanted that they they go on, I can't even have that thing at this point.
Yep. That's what
It's
I
been so
did.
long. They don't realize that they moved so far away from it. They could actually move their way back to it, but they don't realize that they actually caused that it's not there anymore. Like whatever that thing is they wanted, there's a
Yeah.
reason why it's not there. You actually moved so far away from it, you can't even see it now, you
Oh
know?
my God. And I can see this so clearly like a film strip in my head. You know, I remember when I was 18, 19, 20, I was very clear that what a job was what I wanted in an
Hmm.
orchestra somewhere. And I was certain that I could win one, you know, and then I moved to, but then, I was getting mixed messages about grad school, right? After undergrad, I saw people doing it and I thought, I'm tired of school. Like I really knew I was tired of school. So I moved home
Yep.
and, I decided to just take a year and work and practice. And I started to freelance. I auditioned for this really small orchestra and I got the job and it was fun. And it was not a terrible little orchestra, paid barely anything. Um, and then I was working as an administrative assistant in an office for like a summer music festival, not like a orchestra. It was like a local, like, concert series essentially that
Hmm.
happened in the summer. So I was working like administrative stuff and I was waiting tables. And over time I was like, wow, I really, I don't want to live at home anymore. And
Hmm.
the only way out I saw was going to grad school. But I knew what I was doing. I knew that I was just buying time and I knew that
Hmm.
I was using loan money to get to the city. I wanted to be in the
Yep.
city in Chicago. So,
Yep.
so this is like where I start to deviate, right? Because if I was really still headstrong, I could have said, "Hey, living at home is free, and I don't have to pay very much to live here, and I can take lessons anytime I want, and I can really work hard and da 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 da." But
Hmm.
I started, I could have kept taking auditions and live at home. I actually afford to go to auditions because auditions aren't free. You have to buy
Right.
tickets to them, to
You have to buy
airline
tickets. Yeah,
tickets. Yeah.
totally. You have to, yep. It's really, yeah, totally. And
So this
yeah,
is the
you
beginning of
absolutely
the
could have done that.
staircase down. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then people start to ask you, hey, you know what? Like, I think I remember one of the first gigs I got was a Christmas gig, because Christmas is or this holiday season is such a busy time, and
Hmm.
people were shuffling around gigs. Probably someone got something better and called in, and this I somehow got called to play assistant at
Shocker.
yeah, right. It was my first thing. I got called to play assistant, and I was like, small fish in a big pond. It was close to Chicago, and I met this guy who became a good friend of mine and late now he's in a big orchestra and I really admired him. He's a great player. Actually, I knew him from undergrad. That's how I knew him. And so he since he knew me, he asked me to play assistant and then I did a good job and he was like, "Wow, you're really good at playing assistant. Would you want to do it at the other orchestra I play in Springfield?" I'm like, "Okay." And so I got lured in sort of by, you're good at this. You're really good at it.
Hmm.
You should do this, and then
Hmm.
money, I can make some money doing this and I can get more experience. That all the list of justifications that
Hmm.
gradually took me away from what I
Hmm.
really wanted. So the actions did not, match the goal. And
Well,
the goal
yeah.
faded. The goal faded over time.
Yeah. And you know what's interesting? Like I think about now, there's so much more. I think there's so many more things offered, like, I'll just bring it up here. Denise Tryon offers audition mode,
Oh, yeah.
right? That horn workshop that she does every year. And, um, it's basically a week long. I don't think it's quite a week. Maybe it's like 5 to 7, maybe it's 6 days or something, but it's almost a week. And she does, it's a workshop for auditioning, to actually get trained to audition for jobs,
Yep.
And of course, it makes sense for her to do that because she was in the Philadelphia Orchestra for so long. She had other jobs besides that. She's one other job. I think she's had two or three other major jobs besides Philly. And, but like that's the kind of stuff when I think about how I would be like if you think about the behavior matching the goal, if what you want to do is play in an orchestra, that's the kind of stuff I would be putting myself into. I wouldn't be, necessarily, and of course, this wasn't necessarily offered, of course, when you were coming up, but I'm just saying, like, when I think about behavior matching a goal, I would go to audition mode if I was a horn player, and study with Denise and Carl. I wouldn't play assistant if I knew that that's not the job I wanted. I would say no to certain gigs. I'd say yes to very specific things and no to everything else. It's so interesting how, classical music is this thing where everybody feels like they have to say yes all the time.
Oh, totally. And I feel like I totally agree with you. If I had to do it over again, I would definitely do what you just said. I would do audition mode. I would probably suck it up and live at home. I watched this really funny. Remember I told you about this YouTube show called Hot Ones? Where this guy interviews people while they're eating.
I love that show.
It's so great. And you go you start at the lowest level of hot sauce and there's like 10 levels. And
and he's interviewing people and it's hilarious.
And the closer they get to the top, Devin and I watched 2 of these episodes last night and we were laughing so hard. And actually one of them was that guy, Casey. This is like the 3rd time I'm bringing him up on a podcast episode, but,
they interviewed Casey Neistat?
Yeah. He was on there. And, one of the things he says is, if you have something that you want to do in life, you should definitely do something that you hate, something that you just fucking hate doing, because then you're really going to be motivated to get out of there. Because he was working as his job was to scrub the pots inside of a restaurant in Connecticut that served clam chowder. So he hated it. Like he's scrubbing the bottoms of like caked on creamy soup, and he was motivated, like, I got to get the hell out of here. Right. And so I'm thinking, like, I took that's actually,
that's actually not bad advice.
No, I know.
That's actually not bad advice.
I know. And I'm mapping it onto my own life and going, well, I was kind of a wuss. Like, I don't want to live at home anymore. So I'm going to just take out $50,000 so I can live in the city. I mean, ridiculous now when I'm looking back at it. Like that's a 22-year-old putting their head in the sand and going, I'll pay it back someday. Who cares? I want to go live in Chicago.
I'll get a big job and I'll pay it back. Cause $150,000 a year job is somehow going to pay back, 50 or 60 grand in loans.
Yeah. And keep in mind that 60,000, whatever I took out, 50, 60,000, that was in 1997. Okay. So like, quadruple that amount for the tuition that I paid back then. Cause all the schools that I went to in Chicago are like 3 times as much as they were when I went.
Oh, sure. Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, I have no idea how my brother's going to send his daughter to college, and I don't even bring it up anymore. Cause I'm like, that's just a sad idea.
Yeah, I know. So that's what I did. I wasn't willing to stick it out. I mean, believe me, I've done crappy jobs. I worked in a kitchen. Like I could relate. I could relate to that because I was a dishwasher at a brunch where their eggs had been sitting on like the hot bar the whole day. And so like you have to scrape that off. But
there's like an egg crust around the outside of the deal.
Yeah. So but like that's an example of what would have happened, if today was the option and audition mode was there and stuff, to live at home and not pay rent and go to audition mode and go take lessons with people and save up and take lessons with people that are really great, without paying all that extra tuition money for classes.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's great. And then also only taking low horn auditions and, like nailing it.
Right.
Really nailing it,
Right.
And only taking auditions you actually wanted, not taking, like if you don't want to play in teeny tiny symphony in nowhere, USA, then don't take that audition. Wait
Yeah.
until the audition, like the one you actually want, comes up so that you're like, and you've prepared, you've
Yep.
done the work,
Because
you
can I tell
know?
you the biggest load of crap? The biggest like bullshit thing that there is out there? You have to work your way up. That is a load of crap. You do not have to start.
I agree. 100% agree with you. That's nonsense.
Yeah. I mean,
Hmm.
I can give you 5 examples of musicians I know who got jobs like in Chicago Symphony, Boston, Pittsburgh. They
Hmm.
were 21, 19,
Yep.
20, 21 when they got the job. And what they
Yep.
did is they nailed the audition. And when it came down to it, that didn't matter that they didn't have experience outside of their college orchestra. Didn't matter.
Hmm. Yep.
Doesn't
Yep.
matter when you go in there like a boss.
Well, you know
So,
what it is? I think so. A lot of people are really concerned about, and I think about people getting jobs. A lot of people are really concerned about having certain things on their resume so that they're
mhm.
allowed to audition. Is that an issue?
Okay, the rule is that if an orchestra denies you to take the first round of auditions, you can still go. That's part of the
Oh,
union
great.
rules.
Okay,
Yeah,
great. So then you're done. Awesome. So as long as you're in the union, you can go.
right. They can write you a letter that says, we're not inviting you at this time. Ain't no rule that says you need to be invited.
So you can actually just show up and get a number.
I don't know if you can just show up or you have to tell them, hey, I'm coming anyway. And I've got, and you might need to get, I'm not sure, I should look into this as far as like if you could get like a letter. I know of people who've just shown up and they've won. I know a lot of people know that story. I shouldn't say everyone, but lots of people know the stories of people who didn't get invited. They went anyway and they won the audition. So not getting invited doesn't mean you can't go. They're just
Okay.
saying, we don't think you're going to win if you come.
Yeah, because your resume doesn't look like you're going to win, but that doesn't mean anything.
Nope, it doesn't. And
The
I
resume
actually
doesn't mean
don't
anything.
know. I don't think that's allowed in the union to say you aren't invited. We're not going to let you come. So I don't know how those
Hmm.
letters are worded about not getting invited, but I'm pretty sure they're worded in a way that says, you know, we're not inviting you because yeah, maybe they don't say because. I'm not sure, but there's no rule that you have to be invited. You just have to have some
Interesting.
chutzpah about it. If I'm
Yeah,
going to use my
which is,
Yiddish.
that's a lot of times a little bit scarce for classical musicians because
Yeah.
chutzpah means I have a
Balls.
resume worthy of what everybody thinks it should be or
Right.
whatever.
Right.
Chutzpah,
So,
chutzpah comes with what other people think of you, not what you think of yourself in classical music.
unfortunately,
Sadly, yes, sadly.
yeah.
Hmm. Yep. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. So that's okay. So that's another really good example of that's another really good example actually.
hmm
As far as career goes. Um,
Yeah. Because
and then
most
of course
people,
there's
sorry, I was just going to say, most people, like, initially, that's their goal. I mean, that was mine to when you get out of school, that you want to get a job somewhere.
well, and I mean that's always been the option for classical musicians. They've never been able to
Hmm.
see beyond that ever.
Right.
Teaching, playing, that's it, or freelancing.
Hmm.
Those are your options. I mean, that's how it is right now. I would love to be having a different discussion 10 years from now that those are not the only options anymore.
Yeah.
That's obviously why we exist here, but
Hmm.
uh, I would really like to see that change.
I would too.
Like badly, I would like to see it change,
Oh, absolutely.
you know?
I would too, 100%. The stuff that I've been, opening up my eyes to in the last year and a half. Because I have to
Hmm.
say, like when we first started, this was your context, of course, because you're coming from the business world and you're going, create your own career, man. And I'm going,
Yeah.
yeah, we should create our own careers. And then, like in the back of my head, I'm going, okay, so what would that look like if Johnny oboe player decide, like I'm trying to think, I'm going into like, um, tangibles, like and trying to figure it out for people. And once I stopped doing that and I was like, wait a second, no, that like I kind of brought myself up over the fence instead of looking through the knot hole in the fence. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
Like I was
Hmm.
like, wait, it's not my job to figure out what every person would do if they weren't going for a job. But I know what I
Nope.
would want to do. And I'm, now I do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all there is to know. And
Mm-hmm.
it's all there is to do is start a conversation about it and start breaking down the walls of limitations of what there is possible because
Well, then there's more to it too. There's one more thing I want to add to that, which is one of the things I notice is that people talk, classical music anyway, when people talk about all the things they want to do, money and what you're going to make or how much you're going to earn is not part of the conversation. It's sort of the afterthought.
mhm.
It's like, I want to do X, Y, Z, ABC, and hopefully I'll get paid for this. Yeah, no. You have to actually put money at the front of the discussion. In other words, if you want to create a unique career, you actually have to have money be one of the main parts of that conversation. Where
Yeah.
is that money going to come from? How am I going to get that money? Who has my money? Who has the money that I need in order to do this? Or if it's a nonprofit, for example, or what am I going to offer that is worth somebody willingly hand over money? And if you're not having that discussion, you're not being realistic. Because if it's not a paycheck, if you're going to create it, you have to create also the paycheck.
Yes, totally. So that's a
You know
huge
what I mean?
part.
Yeah, it's a big, and so what I notice is, so I think that's part of why for you couldn't see over the fence for a while
Mhm.
because you weren't in that conversation that money has to be no, but y'all don't want to talk about money. I don't know why, but because money is a big part of it. You have to be compensated.
You do.
You have to be a demand to be compensated. It's part of the deal.
So that is an interesting word to use, and I love it. Being a
You have to
demand
be
for
paid
it.
for
I
it.
don't think
That's right.
musicians are a demand for anything.
Oh, I'm clear about that. There's a lot of hoping, but no demand. And by the way,
Mm,
demand doesn't mean you have to be an asshole. It just means you have to be a demand for it. Like yourself, you have to be a demand for it. A
mhm.
demand that along with my art goes money. Along with my work, I get paid, and I get paid well. Along with what I produce, I get something in value in exchange for that. You have to be a demand for that.
Yeah.
If you don't talk about money or bring money in, believe me, nobody else will. And you'll get whatever you get
Hmm.
because you weren't a demand, you know?
Exactly.
And remember, we were talking about behavior has to match your goal. So
Hmm.
if your behavior is, I don't talk about money, I don't bring money up, I don't demand anything about money, there's nothing about money, and then that doesn't match your goal. If you want to get paid well, then, and you don't, and all of that, you're doing all of that, those things don't match.
Exactly.
And it's not true that just because you're a performance artist or whatever, that you're not going to get paid. That's bullshit. I don't know who ever decided that. It's ridiculous.
I know. I know. It's just not part of the conversation. And thinking
No.
about being demand, thinking back to the story I just told about my career and how I was not a demand for what I wanted and also wasn't considering money at all because, of course, I'd hoped. Hoping is not demanding, you know? I hope I
That's what
get paid
everyone
a
does
lot
is hope.
someday, you know?
Yep. That's what everybody does is hope.
Yeah. And so not being a
Hmm.
demand looks like me taking a job, taking an audition and not really doing the math about how much I'll actually make after taxes and what that looks like, and
Hmm.
deciding based on those actual numbers whether or not I should take that job, you know?
That's right. Yep. Like, are you okay with making, $40,000 a year minus taxes? And you should do the math on that. And by the way, there's all kinds of charts online. If you want to know how much you make after taxes, like there's actual, calculators in case you don't know. There's actual calculators online. If you get paid a certain salary, it'll take out Social Security, Medicare, blah, 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 blah. And it'll tell you what your net amount is.
Hmm.
You can find that online, literally. You can just literally type in the number. Let's say it's for 40 grand. It'll tell you what you end up. Nope. And you can even do it by state.
That's cool.
Hmm. I'm just saying that because that's just getting in the world of money,
Hmm.
which everybody should be in the world of,
I
you
know.
know?
There's something about classical musicians, really. Even me, I was
Yeah.
afraid to ask people about money, and it's funny the reactions I get from people. They range across the board, but I now I ask people straight up, like, Do you make money? Did you make money at the beginning? How did you make money when you first started out? How much money? Like, I don't say how much, but how are you doing now? How's that working
Mm-hmm.
out? Like,
Yep.
let's
And I
start
mean,
talking about it.
and I'm not afraid to ask people exact amounts. I was on a call the other day and I'm like, okay, so I was talking to somebody who freelances and I said, yeah, so how much do you bring home every month, freelance income?
Hmm.
And he told me, he just told me, oh, I make, X. And it's not, like, there's nothing wrong. I don't know why people are so afraid to ask these questions or talk about this. Money is
Right.
not a big deal. It's really not. I think we have to stop making it such a big deal. It's part of life.
Right.
It's
Right.
necessary.
But
And
sometimes when
listen,
I
you're not going to get what you don't ask for. Put it that way.
exactly, and that's what you have to do. But sometimes I've asked those questions and they go, "Well, I don't do this for the money." And you're going, "But you got to get money somewhere. You got to do
What a
something."
lie. That's such a lie. People say that. That's nonsense.
Yeah, I know.
I
No,
don't do
no.
this for the money.
Yeah, I do it for
Look,
the love.
I understand doing something. Listen, there's things I do right now that I enjoy so much that I almost wouldn't care if I got paid. But and really, I mean, and I've accepted less money for certain things because I just want to do the work. I've done
Mhm.
that. And I was fine doing that. And as long as I'm fine doing that, it's okay. But the thing is, at the end of the day, you do need to make a living.
Right.
You actually do need to make a living. So yeah,
Right.
that's kind of bullshit.
It is.
That's kind of bullshit. So interesting.
Yeah.
That's so funny. I don't do this for the money. Okay. Yeah. Well, because, you could actually do it for the money and for the enjoyment. You could do both,
Right.
you know?
Right.
So again, it's all about your behavior. If you're willing to talk about it, I think it's interesting though that people just think they automatically can't have it. Um, because I do this thing and I don't see how money fits into it or whatever. So they just don't, they sort of take money off the table and do the thing anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, and then
I
I
don't
think
really
it
get
just
it.
becomes a habit because if I look back to where I was about money when I decided to just take out a bunch of loans, it was sort of an idea of, oh, I'll deal with that later. I'll handle the money thing later.
Hmm.
In the future, I'll make a lot of money when I get the job and da da da, without looking at actual numbers, which without actually doing math, you know,
Hmm. Yep.
and without having a strategy. So
Hmm.
if what I said I wanted was a big job that was going to pay off my $50,000 loan, and I was going to need to make six figures, and I wanted a big job, and this is what I wanted, but then I start taking jobs that pay I don't know $100 a service or whatever, um,
Hmm.
and I'm playing assistant, and I'm this and that on the road everywhere. Trying to get into the freelance scene because this is how I can start. Like, I don't know. There's not, there's this progression of freelance to small orchestra to net. It's just, it's BS. You don't need to do that. You don't.
Hmm. Yep.
It's not
And
necessary.
probably the only reason why you did it is because of what people thought of you
Hmm.
or would think of you.
Absolutely.
I think that had a lot to do with why you did it that way.
Of course.
I suspect. Right?
Yeah. Because you want to be part of the working musicians in your city, you know?
Right. You want people to know your name. You want people to think you're part of the deal,
Mhm.
part of you know, classical musician mafia. We're all going to gigs and doing, freelancing together and you know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's I think very much a good old boys and girls popularity thing that goes on there.
Oh, absolutely. There is. It is.
It's all posturing, by the way. It's all just, you guys are just posturing in front of each other instead of actually, it's so funny. There's so much posturing that goes on in this niche. I mean, it's unbelievable how much there is. There is so much posturing that goes on in classical music that you guys have literally forgotten your goals because your goal has become to posture.
I know.
How well can I posture? How well can I peacock? How good can I look? You've literally forgotten your goals, I'm guessing, because you are so busy on this goal of making sure everybody thinks you look good.
Yeah.
I mean, really, that's what I am seeing about the classical music niche. That's just mind blowing for me. It's mind blowing to see it.
I can't disagree with you. I really can't,
Hmm.
you know?
Gosh, like you could be, there's so many great things you could be doing, so much great music you could be making, so many great performances, ensembles you want to put together, music you want to play, things you want to do. Like somehow you stopped focusing on the work and you started focusing on how you look.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
stopped being about the work. That's what's really unfortunate about it.
Hmm.
Because so much great work could be produced.
Exactly. And so,
Classical music could evolve. It could evolve, but everybody's so busy, not evolving it because peacocking or whatever, posturing, that it doesn't evolve.
yeah. And because I'm busy and I said yes to every gig or whatever,
Hmm.
you
Yeah, I
know?
said yes to 10 million gigs, and now I have no time to create anything else,
Yeah.
you know, or something
Yeah.
that I really want to do, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? I have to share this really quick because this is the story of my life essentially. And, until recently, because crushing classical and now, I'm starting an ensemble. And once I started rehearsing with these people and started creating some unusual, different kind of stuff, it was almost like, first of all, time went by so fast in the rehearsals. Like it was almost like I didn't even know that it passed because we were creating. It's something that I'd never done. It felt
Hmm.
so new. It felt so new. I almost felt like a kid. Or I almost felt like, is this even allowed? Like I'm goofing around here, you know? But I'm creating.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so funny how where I was with what this is, this thing that I do has turned into another thing. I don't know if that makes
Hmm.
sense. If it's so vague, but like the thing that I started out doing, you know, playing this instrument for fun, you know, and then
Hmm.
it turns into this is so much fun that I want to do it to make a living. Then it turns into um I can only do this, that, and the other, and I can only make this much if I do it. So I'm just going to do whatever I can so that I'm still allowed to do this to suddenly, you're just stuck,
Hmm.
And then I
Yeah, you're in a
started
trap,
playing.
basically.
You're
Yep.
in a
Most
trap.
people, most people are in a trap. I mean, we've gotten that, especially out of our challenges. A lot of people come into our challenges and they discover the trap they're in. They're very much in a trap.
Yeah. And I didn't even realize that I was in the trap until, I mean, I couldn't identify what the trap was, but I knew I felt trapped because I was like, there's more for me than this. There's more for me than playing assistant to somebody else in an
Hmm.
orchestra. There's definitely more for that for me as a performer, but I don't know what, And now I'm
Hmm.
starting this thing, and I'm so excited to get it started and to see what it's going to be. I know what I want it to be, and getting together with these musicians and creating different kinds of arrangements and stuff like that. It's just like, wow, I'm allowed to do this. There's no rule. No one's going to come and arrest me and put me back in the trap.
I think it's really sad that your words about it are, I'm allowed to do this.
No, I know. I mean,
It's sad
it is.
because you've really been living by that you're not allowed to do things. I can't relate to that, because I
But
just haven't been in the classical world.
not like someone's not going to allow me, but sort of like the rules of like you're a horn player, so you're supposed to do this, that, and the other. You know what I mean? Not like someone says I can't do it, but just I don't think that's possible. No
Yeah.
one's ever done it,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
like a
I just
different
think
kind
it's
of
sad.
permission.
I just think it's really
Yeah.
sad how restrictive, this whole niche,
Yeah.
it's just very, very
Yeah.
restrictive. This is a
Right.
very, um, classical music is stuck in the 90s, man.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very much stuck in the 90s. So
Yeah.
interesting. So, so interesting. And yet at the same time, they're sort of proud of it.
Kinda, yeah. But there are some people who are doing really great things. There's just such a small percentage of it,
Yeah, very
Like
small.
I know some people in our niche, some people in our community,
Hmm.
Christian classical community, they're sharing with us what they're doing, what they're getting started, especially people who've been around here for a little longer.
Hmm.
They're doing such cool things. And I'm like,
Yep.
wow, that I never would have considered that as an option. It's really exciting. That's why I did that post that one day that was like, guys, I can see the future.
Yeah, it's going to take a while. It's going to take
Hmm.
time for that future to become the present. But yeah, there's so many different things. You have to. There's a way to explore that. I think there's a right way and a way that doesn't work at all. And so, which
Hmm.
is why we want people to explore it here because we actually have a way for you to explore it.
Yeah. And the people that I'm talking about who've been around for a while, they're doing work with us and getting further in their goals and in their ideas and coming up with new ideas at the same time. And it's funny because we're not telling them what to do. We're presenting a thing in a different way and they're changing the way that they look at it in their own way, which is
Hmm.
really that's what's so cool about it to watch the transformation,
Hmm. Yep. Yep. Yeah,
you
we're
know.
definitely not giving them any tips or any
No.
business advice or anything. There's none of that. It's a different way
Yeah.
for sure. It's a different method for learning. It's a different
Hmm.
method. So yeah, no, it's going to be cool to see, but and hopefully a lot of people will take on trying something new or something that they really want to do. Get out of
Yeah.
that trap, get out of that because it's a major trap, and gosh, I can't believe how many people are in it, stuck.
Yeah. And I feel like I'm finally out of it because I started, and it took a
Hmm.
while. I remember I proclaimed that I was doing this thing and then I didn't move on it. And then you said, hey, look, I know you said you wanted to do that. You haven't done it yet.
Hmm.
And it actually just took me starting.
Yeah, that's all you have to do is start. But also, I know that you sort of hit some, and you shared this in the course we just did that you've
Hmm.
hit some roadblocks for sure. Like one of the things that Tracy discovered in doing one of our courses is that she doesn't like to communicate.
Yeah, I know. I never would have thought that because I talk a lot.
Yep. But you don't actually like to communicate. It's really interesting.
Hmm.
So there's certain places where you're stopped, even though like you started contempo, but there's a certain point where you stop because any further steps require actually communicating, talking to people, right?
Yeah, starting the conversation.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
It is.
Very interesting.
And
Everybody
I
has
got that
stopping
out of
points.
right, right. And it was amazing what I got doing that,
Yep.
process, the course.
Yep. And of course, I can't wait to see how it turns out, obviously.
I know.
I actually can't wait to see how it turns out. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah. Well, it's in the works. It is.
Hmm. It is.
Because during the course, it was funny. I felt so empowered, and I had a rehearsal with one of the members, and we were going over ideas, and it was crazy because it was right after. I think it was right after the course because we had the live, and then
Hmm.
and then I left that and went straight to that rehearsal, and I was just in this like flow like moment.
Hmm.
I want to say moment, but it was a day. It was like the whole day. And I
Hmm.
opened my mouth and just ideas were flowing out. It was so easy, so amazing. It
Hmm.
was really amazing. So,
Yep.
um, yeah, things are happening and I'm going to work through the communication stuff. I'm sure I'll keep working on it here,
Yeah,
with
for
more
sure.
courses,
Sure.
because I like to do them right along. You create them for our audience and I'm like, I'm doing it too, man.
Hmm. Yep.
You know?
Yeah, for sure. And communication is a big block for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Big block.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
big. So cool.
I get it. Communication.
Yeah, nobody wants to do it.
Yeah. And
Not by text. Not by text.
Not by text.
You're not going to get anything done. It's so funny. People always want to text. No, you're not going to get anything done that way.
I know. By email either. I know.
Nope. I mean, email, you can, email to get a call or get a conversation started, but it's not going to be.
That's the biggest thing I've learned from you from the start is that you need to get on the phone.
Yep. Got to get on the phone. Got to talk to a human. And if they don't want to talk to you, they're the wrong human. Pick somebody else. If all they want to do is communicate by text or email, they are not a human to work with.
Right.
They just are not.
I know, so much to think about, and I'm going to get in communication on this. This is one of the things I'm going to do in the next couple weeks, like towards the end of this year, is get some stuff going with Contempo on the communication front. You know.
Yep. Like I always like to say, you're it. No one else is coming. Right. If you don't lead it, nobody will lead it. That's what's so funny about all this. Everybody's waiting for everybody else to stand up and lead. You got to stand up and lead. There's nobody else is coming. Our whole world is waiting for someone else to lead. And so if you don't lead, you're going to be waiting for a long time for someone else to stand up and lead. And by the way, they may go in a direction you don't want to go.
You're right.
Which is why I don't let any other people lead. I just stand up and lead. That's why I stand up and lead, because I'm not willing to go in a direction I don't want to go.
I know. Classical musicians are used to following the leader. Yeah, like literally, there's a conductor and you do that. But you don't have to do that in life.
Nope. And you don't even have to do that in classical music.
Right.
You can stand up and lead.
Yeah.
So,
awesome.
Yeah. So there you have it.
There you have it. I know. That's a great way to end the podcast. Stand up and lead.
Stand up and lead.
Tag, you're it. All right. Well, thank you so much, Eileen. This was a great fireside chat, and we will see you next time. Bye. Thank you for listening today. Hey, listen, I have a huge favor to ask you, and it will only take a few seconds. If you like this show, one way that you can let us know is by writing a review on iTunes and subscribing to the podcast. Writing a review will help other people to find the podcast and help us immensely. It will only take a few minutes. Just head over to iTunes and search for Crushing Classical. There, you can write a review and click subscribe. Thanks again.